It's a patient who has a class 2 div 2 incisor relationship, so very steep anterior guidance, and they have had a load of veneers placed on the upper anterior teeth. But the veneers, I'll just show you guys, you're not going to see for a while. The veneers are very, very thick. Can you see there? The incisor ledger there, incisor ledger there. They've made the veneers really, really thick. Okay. Have you guys had a look yet? Yeah.
If you notice, one of this is a veneer, this is a veneer, this one here, no veneer in here, that's an implant. Right, so we've got 3 veneers and 1 implant. No veneer, no veneer.
Okay, so why do you think they put really thick veneers on those upper anterior teeth? Well, realistically, it's probably cosmetic, isn't it? That's usually why you have veneers on the upper anterior teeth. And this patient probably wasn't happy with their very significant class 2 div 2 incisor relationship. They probably wanted a more kind of normal aesthetic appearance. And so to get around that, the dentist has put some really, really thick veneers on to kind of bring the buccal aspects of the upper anterior teeth out enough to give us sort of like a normal arch form. Now, problems of doing really thick veneers like that, the emergence profile of these veneers is going to be horrendous. There's going to be a shelf there, isn't there? Yeah? Veneers, you want them to emerge nicely from the gingival contour. You don't want them to have any kind of catch there. But these ones, there's going to be a huge shelf there. It's going to be a plaque trap. And even though obviously you can't see on the models, I imagine the perio, the gingival health around these is absolutely shocking. Even if the patient tries as hard as they can, the plaque trap is going to be awful. So, the problem in this case is that one of the veneers keeps on coming off again and again and again. Because another problem is this patient has very steep anterior guidance. And because the veneers are so thick, quite a lot of that guidance is actually on the veneers themselves. So when the patient's going into protrusion, bang, that veneer's coming off again and again. Now, what should have been done in the first place for this? If a patient comes in with a severe class 2 div 2, which they don't like the appearance of, what's the best solution? Looking at you because you said it earlier. In answer to the different question, but ortho, yeah. Okay, so if a patient doesn't like their incisor relationship, then usually ortho is going to be your best answer. Okay, and that's going to be the least invasive. Yeah, okay, a lot of treatment, and it might involve extractions to make space, etc. But it's going to give the best result by far, because this situation where you've got veneers which are sticking out so far is a recipe for disaster. So I imagine, like I say, gingival problems, and then you've got this problem of the veneer coming off because all the guidance is going through it. Now, to exacerbate this, it looks like at some point one of the teeth has been extracted and has had a implant put in that place. So, in that scenario, I imagine that might have happened because maybe there's been sort of constant failure of veneer, maybe a root fracture, something like that. But the implant has been placed in the sort of new position of the teeth where the veneers are now. So much more anterior to where the natural teeth are. So, even if this patient saw the light and decided to have the veneers taken off, have some ortho done, and moved into the right position, you've now got an implant which is not going to move because an implant is ankylosed. So you've got no scope for movement there. And so you can't really easily remedy this situation with the ideal kind of treatment. So it's a very, very difficult situation. You've found yourself in a situation where other dentists have done treatment which isn't ideal, and there's now a scenario where the patient's veneer is repeatedly coming off, and it's very, very difficult to do anything about that. You could try and re-cement it, but it's not going to change the fact that all the guidance is through that veneer. And it's not going to change the fact that you've got a very poor emergence profile causing gingival problems as well. So there's no easy answer for this one, probably even more so than the case 6, which I was talking about. Because any situation here where you try and do anything is potentially going to cause problems. You could think about doing a crown instead of a veneer, because if you do that, it's going to have better resistance and retention form, and it's therefore going to stay on better, probably. The problem is that your crown that you do is going to have a really poor emergence profile to match up with the other veneers in the anterior region. So then you're going to be doing some work which is really poor, because you shouldn't ever be doing crowns with emergence profiles like that. So the problem is that if you come along to this case as a new dentist, patient says, "Can you sort me out?" It's very difficult for you to do anything here. One, to solve the problem, and two, to solve it without getting involved in what is a really, really messy case. So this is the kind of case where, if you come across it, it's important to, one, recognise that, to recognise the fact that it's a really complex case, and not try and be a hero and sort it out yourself if you're not confident, even if you're doing it purely because you want to help the patient out of best interest, but seek some advice, okay? Normally there'll be either maybe a specialist prosthodontist or restorative dentist who works in your area, or maybe a dental school like this where you can refer a patient just to get some advice. They might not take it on, they might not do the case for you, but they can at least give you some advice as to the best way to go. And then as a dental practitioner, then you can follow it, and at least from a certain extent you are sort of covered medico-legally because you've followed a specialist or a consultant's advice. Okay? Really don't know what the best idea. I mean, literally for this, it would be taking the veneers off, doing the ortho, but then you'd need to liaise with ortho as to the problem of the implant in the wrong place, and all sorts of stuff like that. It's a real nightmare of a case, and one to stay well clear of, if at all possible. Okay? But hopefully, the point of this course is that it allows you to recognise when cases are, one, easy, and you can crack on with them, or two, really hard, and you need some more advice, or even need to stay clear. Okay? And that's what will prove useful to you, hopefully, as you go forward in your career.